Alright, let's dive into the world of special operations, where the stakes are high and the heroes are, well, pretty darn legendary. You've probably heard of Delta Force and the Special Air Service, or S.A.S. for short. These guys are the rock stars of the military world. But how do they stack up against each other? That's what we're diving into today. So, let's set the stage. The S.A.S. is like the granddaddy of all modern special operations units. Founded in 1941, this British powerhouse has been around the block and back. They're the OGs, the trendsetters, the ones everyone else looks up to. Now, on the other side of the pond, we've got Delta Force. These American badasses took a page out of the S.A.S. playbook and said, hey, we can do that too, but with a little extra freedom on the side. Now, you might be thinking, are they just copycats? Nah, not really. While Delta Force was inspired by the S.A.S., they've carved out their own identity. They're like the cool younger sibling who respects their elder, but isn't afraid to break a few rules. So, what makes these units tick? What's their secret sauce? Well, they both fall under different umbrellas. Delta Force is part of the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC if you're into acronyms. The S.A.S., on the other hand, is under the UK's Special Forces. Different families, same high-stakes game. But let's get to the meat of it. What do these units actually do? Well, they're not your run-of-the-mill soldiers. These are the guys you call in when you've got a mission so tough, so complicated, that you need the best of the best. Whether it's counter-terrorism, hostage rescue, or deep reconnaissance, these units are the go-to experts. So, is one better than the other? That's like asking if Batman is better than Superman. It's not about who's better, it's about what makes them unique. Delta Force and the S.A.S. may have different accents, but when it comes to getting the job done, they speak the same language: excellence. Alright, let's talk about their origins a bit. The S.A.S. was founded during World War II, and they've been kicking butt and taking names ever since. Delta Force, they came onto the scene a bit later, in the late 70s, but they've made up for lost time. Let me tell you. So, you're probably wondering, how do these units train? I mean, they've got to be doing something right to be this elite, right? You betcha. Training for both Delta Force and the S.A.S. is no walk in the park. It's more like a sprint through a minefield while juggling flaming torches. For the S.A.S., candidates go through a grueling selection process that includes endurance tests in the Welsh Hills, aptly named the Fan Dance, and survival exercises that would make Bear Grylls sweat. Only the best of the best make it through. Delta Force, their selection isn't any easier. Candidates have to pass a series of physical and mental tests that would break most people. We're talking long-distance marches with heavy packs, land navigation exercises where getting lost isn't an option, and psychological evaluations that dig deep into your soul. And that's just to get your foot in the door. The actual training is a whole other beast, covering everything from advanced marksmanship to hostage rescue techniques. Now, let's talk gear and gadgets, because who doesn't love some high-tech toys? Both units have access to the latest and greatest in military technology. We're talking state-of-the-art weapons, night vision goggles that turn night into day, and communication systems that are more secure than Fort Knox. But it's not just about the gear, it's about how they use it. Both units are masters of improvisation, able to adapt and overcome in any situation. Give them a paperclip and some duct tape, and they'll find a way to complete the mission. And speaking of missions, let's get into some of the high-profile operations these units have been involved in. The S.A.S. gained worldwide fame with Operation Nimrod, where they stormed the Iranian embassy in London to rescue hostages. It was like something out of a Hollywood movie, except it was real, and it set the standard for counter-terrorism operations worldwide. Delta Force, they've had their share of headline-grabbing missions too, like Operation Acid Gambit, where they rescued a CIA operative held captive in Panama. These are the missions that get turned into blockbuster films, but for these guys, it's just another day at the office. So, there you have it. Delta Force and the S.A.S. may come from different sides of the Atlantic, but they're cut from the same cloth of excellence. Whether it's their rigorous training, their high-tech gear, or their legendary missions, these units are the epitome of what it means to be elite. They're not just soldiers, they're warriors, experts, and, above all, professionals. And while they may have their differences, when it comes to getting the job done, they're in a league of their own. So, we've talked about how the S.A.S. was born in the heat of World War II, right? Well, David Sterling, the guy who founded the S.A.S., had this audacious idea. He envisioned small teams of paratroopers going deep behind enemy lines in North Africa, gathering intel, blowing up enemy planes, and disrupting supply routes. And get this, the S.A.S. started off as a tiny unit, just 5 officers and about 60 men, but they called it a brigade to mess with the enemy's head. Talk about psychological warfare. Now, fast forward to the end of World War II. The British government thought, well, we don't need these guys anymore, and disbanded the S.A.S. Big mistake. Just 2 years later, they were like, oops, we actually do need them. And the S.A.S. was back in action, laying the foundation for the modern unit we know today. Since then, they've been involved in high-stakes missions globally, from the Iranian embassy siege to the Gulf War and the War on Terror. Their motto, "Who dares wins," isn't just for show, it's their way of life. Now, let's jump back to Delta Force, founded in 1977 by Colonel Charles Beckwith. This unit was America's answer to a growing number of high-profile terrorist incidents in the 70s. Beckwith had a monumental task: create a Tier 1 special mission unit from scratch in just 24 months. Sounds impossible, right? But Beckwith had a secret weapon: his experience with the S.A.S. He served alongside them as a Green Beret and borrowed heavily from their selection process and structure to create Delta Force. So, you see, the DNA of the S.A.S. is deeply embedded in Delta Force. But don't think for a second that Delta is just an Americanized S.A.S. Oh no, they've got their own flavor. Beckwith and his team took the S.A.S. model and adapted it to fit the unique needs and challenges of the U.S. military. The result? A unit that's as versatile as it is deadly, capable of tackling everything from counterterrorism to hostage rescue and more. Now, let's talk about some of the missions that put these units on the map. Remember the 1972 Munich Olympics? Armed Palestinian guerrillas took Israeli athletes hostage. That tragic event was a wake-up call for the U.S., highlighting the need for a specialized counterterrorism unit, which eventually led to the formation of Delta Force. And speaking of missions, both units have been involved in operations that changed the course of history. For the S.A.S., it was missions like Operation Barras in Sierra Leone, where they rescued British soldiers held captive by a rebel militia. Delta Force had its share of game-changing ops too, like the hunt for Pablo Escobar and the capture of Saddam Hussein. These aren't just military operations, they're defining moments that shape our world. So, whether it's the S.A.S.'s audacious beginnings in the deserts of North Africa or Delta Force's rapid formation in response to a changing global landscape, both units have proven time and again that they're not just part of history, they're making it. And while their methods may differ, their end game is the same: to be the best of the best, no compromises. So, we've established that both Delta Force and the S.A.S. have been involved in some of the most critical missions around the globe. But did you know these units have also fought side by side? Yep, they're like the dynamic duo of the special ops world. Take Task Force Black, for example. This was a joint US-UK task force made up of Delta Force and S.A.S. operators. And get this, they neutralized around 3,500 terrorists in just 5 years in the Middle East. Talk about teamwork making the dream work. Now, you might be wondering, what are these units up to these days? Well, much of it is shrouded in secrecy. Both the US Department of Defense and the UK Ministry of Defense are pretty tight-lipped about these units. But what we do know is that their mission sets are incredibly diverse. We're talking counter-terrorism, counter-narcotics, high-value target capture, covert ops, and even training other nations' militaries. And that's just scratching the surface. These guys are the tip of the spear, the elite of the elite. Let's dig a bit into their structure, shall we? The S.A.S. is made up of 4 active Sabre squadrons: Alpha, Bravo, Delta, and Gulf. Each squadron has around 60 men and is divided into 4 troops: air, boat, mobility, and mountain. These troops specialize in everything from parachute insertions to amphibious operations and Arctic warfare. They're like the Swiss Army knife of special ops. Delta Force. They've got a similar setup. 4 squadrons, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, each with 2 direct action assault troops and a recon and surveillance troop. And yes, they also have an aviation support platoon that operates helicopters. It's almost like they were inspired by the S.A.S or something. Wink, wink. But wait, there's more. The S.A.S has some unique elements that set it apart. They've got specialized units like the Counter-Revolutionary Warfare Wing, which is essentially a school for counterterrorism. Then there's the Operations Research Wing, where its S.A.S operators work with Ministry of Defense techies to develop new weapons and equipment. Ever heard of the flashbang? Yep, these are the guys who came up with it. And let's not forget the Revolutionary Warfare Wing, which works closely with the UK's Secret Intelligence Service, kind of like the CIA's paramilitary arm. These guys are the brains behind the brawn, ensuring that the S.A.S stays at the cutting edge of military tech and strategy. So whether it's the S.A.S specialized wings or Delta Force's adaptability and close relationship with their British counterparts, both units continue to evolve and adapt to the ever-changing landscape of modern warfare. They're not just making history, they're shaping the future. And while they each have their unique strengths and capabilities, when it comes to getting the job done, they're both in a league of their own.